آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله والبعث بعد الموت لا إله إلا الله. مهما توارت فينا الحياة، مهما ضاع الزهر ندى، يضيء النور الحياة سنا، ويبقى الفؤاد ينادي يا الله. آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله والبعث بعد الموت لا إله إلا الله. عرفناه نورا ينير القلوب، عرفناه هادي لخير الدروب، وسر الحياة إليه يوب، ليبقى الفؤاد ينادي يا الله. آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله والبعث بعد الموت لا إله إلا الله. يا رب العالمين يا رحمن يا رحيم يا الله. لمسناه عشقا بهذه الدنا، رأيناه روحا بهذه السنا، ففيه الهدى والندى والمنى، ويبقى الفؤاد ينادي يا الله. آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله والبعث بعد الموت لا إله إلا الله.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5 here in the West Midlands and 105.1 if you're tuned into us in Milton Keynes and Luton on Inspire FM. Welcome to this evening's show. We have a pre-recorded show this evening, but it is something that will help you, inshallah, life skills to have that will help you in your family, with your parents, with your children. We hope you won't ever need it, but if you don't have it, you will regret not having it if you do need it. So let me introduce our guest, Marleen. She's been with us before. Marleen's done lots of pediatric first aid with us, general first aid, baby massage. Oh, you've done a lot of things with us, Marleen, over the years. Yes. And this evening, I was just hoping that we could kind of talk a bit about the changes that's happening that you were just telling me about, that people need to be upskilled more, and something about these defibrillator machines that people see popping up in the corners. What are they and how do they use them? And then maybe prep also the parents, how they can have these skills for the Christmas holidays that's coming up, because we know that most accidents happen in the home over the holiday time, and it's too late when you need these skills. You have to have them now.
Yeah. Well, the first thing, of course, I want to say, first aid is common sense. Okay, nothing is, it's not brain surgery. Okay, so it's all common sense. But it's kind of sometimes good to know what to do rather than standing in front of it and freeze and think, oh my gosh, what do I need to do now, isn't it? So that's why I usually say, and from all the things that are happening in the world, we travel more, we are exposed more, we do a lot more things. And COVID is a very good example. Things can just happen to us, isn't it? So what can we do for that? What can we do with that? So more and more you see things like defibrillators, as you already said, in the communities and in areas. And the football, for instance, has really helped with that. I don't know if anybody remembers last year, Ericsson, who went down during the World Cup, okay, and he got revived with a defibrillator, okay. So, and I always say to people, football players are the best looked after people in the world. I mean, they get these medical checks and things, and something in his heart, in Ericsson's heart, was not right. And that slipped through every medical test that he did. And that's why he ended up in cardiac arrest in a football pitch. And a defibrillator helped with that. A defibrillator basically is a machine, okay? Anybody can use it. Okay, you don't have to be trained. You get it from larger supermarkets, you get it from the police stations, the fire brigade stations, train stations. You get it on town halls, sometimes in churches. The mosque might have one. Bigger businesses have them. So loads of places will have them now. Sports fields, of course, have them now. And what they do basically, they help. They look at. You put the pads on, okay, and they look at what the heart is doing. And I do have to change something, because a lot of people watch programs, okay, where they actually tell you that what they do, and it's actually incorrect. Defibs, okay, look at the heart, and if the heart is in a fibrillating mode, that means the heart is still sort of shaking about. It's still willing to work, but it's out of sync, okay. The defib basically stops your heart. It stops the heart, and then it hopes the heart remembers how to go back into that normal rhythm. Okay, and that can happen after 1 shock, 2 shocks, and there's football players out there that have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 shocks. Okay, so these defibrillators absolutely are life-saving machines. Okay, because you put them on someone, the machine finds out what's going on with the heart. Okay, and in 60 or 70% of the cases, the defib actually can help with restarting that heart. The heart can restart again after it's stopped. Okay, and then the heart starts pumping again. Okay, in the meantime, hopefully, okay, you have done some CPR on a person. Okay, CPR means you put your hands together. You put them on the heart, which is in the center of the chest, in between the nipple line, if I may say that. Okay, and then you're going to push down as hard as possible, 6 centimeters or a third of the body deep. Okay, and you do that on a rhythm of 2 per second. So basically, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's what pump that heart around. What you're doing is you're pushing that heart in, push blood out. That's what you're doing when you're doing CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, okay? And in the meantime, someone's out to get that defib, okay? That needs to go on bare skin, okay? One underneath the right collarbone and one on the left-hand side, 2 pads, okay? And then the machine takes over. You step away, the machine starts talking to you, and you basically listen to what the machine is saying. And every single time it tells you what you need to do, that's what you start to do, okay? And at some point it's done everything, okay? And it says start CPR, and then you go again with your CPR. Okay, so it sounds, it sounds relatively easy. I know. Okay, it's hard work. Okay, but adrenaline will pick you up, hopefully. Okay, and that machine will absolutely talk to you. It is absolutely a lifesaver. So know where your defibs are. Okay, know where the closest one is. Okay, because if you ever need it, okay, you need to send someone out to get it, because it will absolutely save lives. Okay, so yes.
So would you advise people to have this basic knowledge, or even to listen today, talk about putting your hands together and doing that? What's I suppose what I'm trying to ask is, what signs would a person have first that they would need to be doing this,
Right.
so that they would know that it is the heart, and they need to get on top of that person's heart, lie them on the ground and be on top of them, or somewhere that is safe and secure. It could be on the road, but you don't want to be in the middle of the road, of course. You need to be safe and secure. But what signs would tell them that they need to do this first?
Yeah, so what we teach people in first aid is something called Dr. ABC. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the D stands for danger. You always need to think about yourself. You don't want to get, you don't want to injure in the process, because if you're injured, you can't help that other person.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to stop. If you talk about traffic, you need to stop the traffic. Okay. So reroute the traffic. Okay. Move people away. Anything with electricity, turn it off. So make sure it's safe for you to approach that person. Okay, because I always say there's only two reasons why people might not be feeling well. The first reason is something in their body is giving out. Okay, worst case scenario is heart attacks, strokes, seizures, those kind of things. The other reason is something from the outside does something to someone. Okay, so they can trip over something. Something can fall on top of them. Someone comes out of the bushes and punches them in the face. Okay, something from the outside does something for that person. Now, specifically if it's the outside, you don't want to be punched in the face by that same person. So you need to make sure it's safe for you to approach the person. Okay. The R stands for response. You need to get a response from someone, okay? And we have kind of a system. So if the person doesn't talk to you, can you talk to that person? Shout out. Make sure that if they're hearing impaired, you're going really close to their ear, okay? And shout out. If you know their name, please use their name, okay? If they're not reacting to your voice, can you touch them? Do a quick shake on the shoulders and see if they're reacting to that. If nothing happens, we at least need to assume they're unconscious, okay? Then the A stands for airway. We need to open up the airway. The tongue can block your airway. Your tongue is a muscle. And if you go unconscious, all your muscles go floppy, and so does your tongue. Now, you can't swallow your tongue. Your tongue sinks in, becomes a blob, and your tongue is attached to your lower airways. So if you're on the floor on your back, okay, your tongue becomes floppy. It's attached to your lower airways. It basically sinks in and has a perfect match just over your airway here. And it blocks your airway. And if you're unconscious, you don't notice that your airway is being blocked. Okay. And we need oxygen as human beings. So we need that airway open. So opening up the airway means you put a hand on the forehead. You put two fingers underneath the chin, and you basically lift the head up. Then you take that tongue and you move it away from the airway. Okay, so there's an open airway.
So you're stretching that neck. I can see you. You're actually demonstrating it here to me.
Yes.
And I know our listeners are probably wondering what we're doing.
What are we doing? Yes.
Stretching that neck back. So you're up, but that head is going back, and that neck is stretched back, and that tongue goes away then.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Yeah. Now you need to check for breathing. And the best way to do that, okay, is use your ear. Your ear is very sensitive, okay? So you can feel air, okay, from your earlobe. You can listen for breathing, okay? And then you need to look at the chest. So basically you put your ear really close to someone's nose and mouth, okay? You feel, you listen, and then you look at the chest to see if the chest is going up and down. If people have coats on and things, open up the coats. You need to see if that chest is going up and down, okay? So check for breathing, and you do that no longer than 10 seconds, but you need to do that, say, up to 10 seconds, okay? So count. Don't do 1, 2, 3, and then take your ear away, because people sometimes breathe really, really slowly, okay? So make sure you really check for that breathing. Can I feel it? Can I hear it? Can I see that chest going up and down? If you don't hear any of that, you don't feel any of that, you don't see any of that, okay, then we need to assume the person is in cardiac arrest. The heart has stopped, okay? And that means you need to start doing CPR. First of all, of course, call 999 as soon as possible, okay? You call 999, you ask for an ambulance. The question you will get, first of all, okay, is your casualty breathing? Your answer is no, okay? And then you start doing your chest compression. You also shout for help, because you want other people to help you out, okay? Especially if you are in this area where other people might be nurses there, or people who are first aid trained, okay? Because they can help you out. And then you want to also shout for that defib, okay? Get that defib in. The quicker you get that defib on the person, the more chances of a better recovery for that person, okay? So Dr. ABC.
Dr. ABC. And if you're in an area or people living at home. I know there's apps now that can go on this and they can look it up. So listeners, if you are at home, please look it up and see where it is, where these fibs are. I can't remember the name of the apps. I don't know if you know them, Marleen, or not, top of your head.
Red Cross has one, okay. But to be honest, if you call 999, they can tell you where the closest DFib is. So that's not a problem. Okay, so if you got 999, ask where the closest DFib is. They will tell you where the closest DFib is. If you need a PIN code because it's in a box outside, they also give you that PIN code as well.
Okay? Excellent. So because it's you're not breaking it off the wall or anything.
No.
PIN code for it.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're able to open it and you're authorized to have it for this period of time.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why they're there for, basically. So they are for saving that life. Okay. And just to let you know, I mean, unfortunately, it can be anybody. You can be 6 years old, 16 years old, 66 years old, and 106 years old. Anybody can have, a heart issue. Anybody can have a cardiac arrest. Anybody can have a stroke. So, don't assume it's only for older people or old people. It can be anybody. Okay. As Ericsson, as the football players have actually shown us. Okay. You could be the healthiest person ever. Okay. If the heart says not today, then, it's not today. So yeah, anybody can, and anybody can use that DFib as well. So you don't have to be trained, as long take it and listen. The moment you open up, the moment you turn it on, it starts talking to you and you do exactly what it tells you to do. Okay.
And they're always standard or refreshed and maintained.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So once they've been used, okay, depending on the way, if you got it from business, the business then needs to do their maintenance on it. So they need to order new parts, they need to check the batteries and things like that. If they're in a box, okay, they're getting out of service if it's being used, okay, then the service will look at that box, will put the new parts in there, will check it all, will clean it all, and then it goes back into service so it can help someone else again if that's needed. So yes, absolutely.
Great. Great indeed. So you have the pads on, you're doing your compressions, you're going those 6 centimeters down. For some women, it might be right over that body doing that. And
remember, if you crack a rib, okay, that's good. Okay, you have to crack a rib. Okay, then you know that you're not going deep enough. Okay, so
yes, because it is quite hard. It is really hard to do this. And how many compressions now is it to the breathing, to the breath that you give?
Yes. So if you want to do rescue breath, okay, it's 30 chest compressions and then 2 rescue breaths. So the rescue breath basically means, in layman terms, we're breathing in 21% oxygen, we're breathing out 16% of oxygen. So the 16% that you're breathing out as a human being can be a lifeline for the person who's in cardiac arrest, because, okay, we have about 5%, between 21 and 16%, we have about 5% of oxygen, residual oxygen in our body. But if you start pumping that around the body when you're doing CPR, okay, basically the body is using that oxygen. So after about 3 minutes, that oxygen has left, is being used in the body. And if you then keep on doing CPR, basically there's empty blood going around. There's no oxygen in that blood. Now the brain needs oxygen. The brain, the heart, and the lungs need oxygen. The brain needs oxygen. Every minute the brain does not get oxygen, 10% of the brain dies. That means in 10 minutes the brain can die. Okay, so if you call 999 and they say it takes 15 minutes for an ambulance to arrive and you do not do rescue breath, you're basically handing over a dead person because you have not put any oxygen back into that person. Okay, your 16% that you're breathing out can be a lifeline for that person. Okay, so if you're doing the rescue breath, okay, then you again need to open up those airways because you need to make sure the tongue is not blocking the airways. You need to make sure you close the nose because you want your air not to come out of their nose. And then you make a seal all around their mouth and you basically breathe out in their mouth. Okay, just normal breathing out. Okay, and you do that twice, and then you go back to a chest compressions. Okay, so yeah, and that's your 16% you're breathing out goes into that person, then filling up a little bit of that oxygen that they need to keep going, basically.
Great. And sometimes there might be 2 people, one person giving the breaths and one person is focusing on the heart pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. If somebody's already started, with rescue breath, let them continue doing the rescue breath. Then you can help out with them with the teams who are doing chest compressions because you want other people to help you out. It's hard work. It's very hard work. Okay, and adrenaline will absolutely pick you up. Okay, and that will help you initially, but at some point that adrenaline will drain from you, and then it's very hard work to do chest compression. So yes, so find other people to help you out. Okay, so yeah.
Thank you. That gives us an overview of somebody that's had a heart attack, I think. Is there anything else before we move on to stroke? Because you mentioned stroke there, and I want to move to stroke before the break as well. So is there anything else we need to know about a heart attack before we move off of that?
The only other thing I would like to mention is that sometimes the machine says no shock advised. If the heart has completely stopped, then the machine can't do it, because that's what the machine does. The machine stops your heart. So if your heart's completely stopped, you had a massive heart attack, your heart's not functioning at all, okay? The machine can't do anything with that, because that's what the machine does. So if it's already there, that stopped heart, then the machine doesn't work. So the machine works in 60 to 70% of the cases. But not in all cases, because if the heart's already stopped or something else going on with the heart that the machine can't help with, okay, then it will tell you no shock advice, continue doing CPR, okay, and that tells you this person is clinically dead. A person needs to go to they need to go to AE as quickly as possible. And the only thing that you will hear every 2 minutes, the machine will talk to you every 2 minutes, okay, every 2 minutes it will tell you no shock advice, continue doing CPR, okay, so yeah, that's the only thing people need to be aware of. Yeah.
Okay, but by that time, I'm sure you'll be on the phone to 999. They will be giving you advice as well and reassuring you and tell
they
you.
will shout at you. Yeah, absolutely. There's one other thing, and it's called agonal gasps. Agonal gasps. Basically, if you are in cardiac arrest, your heart is stopped, your lungs stopped, everything's stopped, but your brain is still functioning. So the brain is still sending signals sometimes, and sometimes the body can react to that. So, for instance, it sends signals, okay, to your lungs, and your lungs are kind of a little bit in spasms, and that creates air, and that air comes out of your mouth, and because that air passes your voice box, it creates a sound. So you have you hear people do, and you think, oh my gosh, it's agonal gasp. It doesn't mean anything. It's just air coming out. Okay. So don't stop you doing chest compressions. Start doing your chest compressions. It's called agonal gasp, and it's just fake sounds in that sense. Okay. So be aware of that. And the ambulance services will tell you about that as well if you call them. So yeah, absolutely. So but be aware of that. There's weird things can happen because the body is still in automatic mode. You breathe automatically. So sometimes those movements still happen even though the person is in cardiac arrest. Okay. So you need to be aware of that. Yeah.
Thank you, Marleen.
بك يا زمان اللهو أشكو غربتي إن كانت الشكوى تداوي مهجتي قلبي تساوره الهموم توجعان ويزيد همي إن خلوت بظلمتي يا قلب إني قد أتيتك ناصحا فاربأ بنفسك أن تقودك محنتي إن الغريب سقته أيام الأسى كأس المرارة في سنين الغربة وغربتي قد كان نومي هانئا فوق الثرى من غير شكوى أو عذول شامت من غير هم بالزمان وكربه من غير تسهاد يشتت راحتي أنا في ابتساماتي عرفت ولم أزل حتى أتاني ما ينغص بسمتي إن سعفتني دمعتي في فرحتي أنزلتها طرابا لأرسم بهجتي
If you've just tuned in to us, listeners, this is Parenting Hour on Unity FM 93.5. Thank you for tuning in. We are talking about first aid techniques as we're going into the holiday season. We really wanted to give you this show early so that you're prepared. And we're going through some first aid, basic first aid, but life-saving skills to have that you may need. Inshallah, you will never need, but if you do need them, you need to have them now. Think about them. Think about what you're doing, how you're going to practice these skills. Think about the machine, the resuscitation machine that Marleen was just mentioning, and how you can get that help, get that machine as quickly as possible. So we've just been doing about a heart attack there, Marleen. Thank you so much. And I know we're going to, after the break, focus a little bit more on children. But just before we do that and before the break, if you mentioned stroke, and I know stroke is so common as well, and it usually gives no signs, and people lose the first 5-10 minutes by not recognizing those signs, which are vital that they should know. So can you help us with those signs, please, and what people should know?
Yes. Stroke basically is a brain attack. Okay, there's two things that can happen for a stroke. Stroke either is a clot in the brain or a hemorrhage in the brain, and it basically means that if you have a clot, if you imagine a pipe and there's a clot in the pipe, after that clot is nothing happening. Nothing is pushing through. Okay, so that means oxygen is not going around the brain. Okay, and you need your oxygen for your brain. You need your brain. Your brain is your motor for your entire life. Okay, and the signs and symptoms of stroke is something that you something you can use is the word FAST, FAST. Okay, and again, you don't have to have all these signs and symptoms. One of them can imply that you're having a stroke. Okay, the first thing that you can look at is someone's face. Is one side of the face drooping? If you can't really see it, can you ask them to smile? If one end goes up in a smile, the other end does not go up, okay? Is there a slacking going on in the face? The second thing you want to do is you want to take both arms of the person who you think is having a stroke, and you lift them up. And you say to that person, I'm going to let your arms go. I want you to leave them there. I want you to keep your arms up. Okay, and if you see a drift or you see an arm falling, okay, that might indicate a weakness on one side. And it should be on the same side as where that slackness is in the face. And then there is speech, slurring of the speech, difficulty speaking, using the wrong words, not coming up with the words, so anything to do. So it's not only slurring, but anything to do with speech. Okay, as you already have heard, I speak really, really quickly. Okay, I apologize for that. Mm-hmm. But if I'm starting to do that, something is not quite right, is it? Because that is not my normal way of speaking. So is this person speaking normally? Ask them questions, okay? And then look at the body. Now, stroke, the quicker you have that person in hospital, the better for stroke, okay? Every 15 minutes counts. Okay, within 2 hours, and they can give you some in general some block busting medication to get rid of that clot. Okay, but yeah, you need to get that person to hospital as quickly. It's your brain. You need your brain for your entire life. So get that person in hospital as quickly as possible. 999 112. Okay, and get that person into hospital as quickly as possible. Okay, so there's nothing you can do for that person other than sitting in a comfortable position, head and shoulders raised. Okay, so make them as comfortable as possible. Of course, you can go, of course, unconscious and in cardiac arrest from stroke eventually. Okay, but in general, okay, make sure that you just keep talking to that person. Make sure that they know that you're there. Okay, and get that person into A&E as quickly as possible. Okay, but yeah. That's the quickest thing. So think fast. The T stands for time or test. So time, it's time to call 999. So fast. Face, arm, speech, test. Okay.
Very good. That's really good summary as we're coming into the commercial break indeed. And this could happen anybody out of the blue very quickly, any parent, inshallah, listeners, it doesn't happen to you, but this is why we're doing this evening show, to give you this knowledge and skills beforehand, so that if it ever was to happen to a friend, a neighbor, a passerby, or your parents or grandparents, that you actually have this knowledge here that you can apply it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can happen to anybody. Again, 6, 16, 66, or 106. It can be anybody, unfortunately. So yes, yeah.
Wow, that it can even happen to a child.
Yes, it can. Absolutely. Yes, unfortunately.
That's
you bang your head on the street, and that can create a hemorrhage. So yes, it can happen, unfortunately, to anyone. Yes. Yeah.
Dear, indeed. There. So we want to give this message across this evening. We're coming into a commercial break in about a minute's time, indeed. So we've talked about heart attacks, we've talked about strokes, we've talked about the knowledge you need, the importance of keeping safe, the importance of ringing 999 and getting that information, calling for help, shouting for help, for others to come and help you, indeed, and so that you're not alone and that you get that help and support. And then one thing I picked up when you talk about strokes is to reassure that person is still there, listening is there. So you're reassuring, you're getting help, we're going now, I'm doing what needs to be done, and we're going to the hospital as quickly as possible. That's correct?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Reassure them. Okay. You're with them, you're staying with them. Okay. And you're getting them help. Yes, absolutely.
Great. So we've got all of that in place. And when we come back after the commercial break, we're going to be talking about children and pediatrics and what to do there. So listeners, if you've got a question for Marleen, please do ring in the studio. We are doing this as a pre-recorded show, but it will be repeated again on Sunday, and we want to get that information across to everybody. This is life-saving information. The number of the show, if you have a question that you want to ask her, is 0121 772 8892. No question is silly. Please ask the questions. Please maybe go on a website or re-educate yourself in basic first aid skills. Go on those courses. Marleen gives out courses or delivers courses across the city. Isn't that right, Marleen?
That's
very
correct.
busy doing that.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed. So there's lots of courses around. The knowledge is there, and it's up to you to learn that knowledge, to have that knowledge. Hopefully you will never need it, but that when the time comes, that you know what to do, indeed. And it's really good. I've gone on first aid courses myself. It's been really useful knowing what to do. And I know when you're put in the position of doing it, it's very different. But as you say, the adrenaline takes over and you remember things that you didn't think you knew. So and that will happen too to our listeners if they ever do need it. This evening, we're talking about life-saving skills for adults and for babies and children. Now we're going to talk about, so we've talked before the break about adults, and we talked about heart attacks, strokes, what to do, where to go. And there's a lot of information that Marleen has given us, and skills that she's given us, but do listen to the show again or go online and try to learn those skills and upskill yourself. Inshallah, you will never need it, as we're the same in the after the break. Now we're going to talk about for your children. Inshallah, you will never need this either, but we want you to have those skills, especially during holiday time, because we know that accidents happen so much, Marleen, isn't that right?
Oh gosh,
the whole holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's so quickly done as well, you know. You have the candle falling, or you have a child running around, okay, on socks and they slip, or, you know, they walk outside and they have no coat on, and the coat is open, okay. All those little.
So you're just saying about so much happening in the home like this over the holiday period, and poor parents, they can't turn their back. Sometimes it's the children get into things. The children put things up their noses. Children pull things. They're very inquisitive, and we want them to be inquisitive, but we need the house to be safe as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
How could we make that house safe? How can we do a risk assessment? We know for our work we do a risk assessment. Yes. What should parents look out for, you know, basically in the home?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of simple things, and it's like, it depends, of course, on the age of the children that you have, of course. But if they're, you know, little kids, they want to touch everything. And that's the way they learn, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So anything for them is new. They have no fear because they've never learned fear, because, you know, their brain is completely open. So anything is new for them, and they don't know that fear. So if there's a candle burning, they go for the candle. It's flickering around. You know, it's a nice color. It gives a bit of, you know. So they will go for that because it's interesting, and they don't know the consequences of, for instance, a candle. Mm-hmm. Same thing is if they're wearing socks and they're running around in the home, and you've got, say, wooden floors or areas where it's slippery, okay, or you spilled something on the kitchen floor, and they're running around and they're playing with their swords and they're going, and, you know, they're playing all that kind of, and all of a sudden they're stepping into something, and they're boof, there they go, and then they hit the wall or they hit the floor. It's so easily done, isn't it? So yeah, those are the kind of, and sometimes you can't really do anything about it. Okay, so sometimes it just happens. Okay, sometimes you need to then, you know, work with what you have, and then make sure that you have, you know, that you cool a burn down, or, you know, make sure that you look after your child when they hit their head, or they bumped on, or you know, they had an abrasion on their knee, or things like that.
You know, parents really have a hard job, because any little thing could be a danger, from a pencil that they're using, or wrapping paper, or cling film, or there's so many dangers. Plastic bags, there's so many dangers. How we're not even talking about toys, you know, and
little batteries. Oh God, yeah, the batteries and things like that. Yeah, okay. You know, kids walking around or having something in their mouth and then falling, for instance. So yeah, anything can be lethal if you, absolutely. So yes. Yeah.
So what are the most common things that happen in the home? From your experience, you've been a long time doing this, doing first aid with parents and look after children, and I know you've lots of experience as well in trying to help parents and help them and help children that have had accidents. What are your top 3 things or top 5 things that our parents need to know?
I would probably say putting things in noses and ears, and you know, and putting things in their mouth. It's you know, that's what kids do. They need to learn what's going on and what things are and stuff like that. So they want to touch things, and then some of them really think it's a great idea to put something in their nose or in their ear or something like that. So that's a big one. Okay, so in general, the rule there is leave it in. Okay, because if you start, you know, faffing about with something in that nose, the only thing you're doing is pushing it further back in. So, and if you, especially with younger children don't really know what, for instance, blowing your nose is. And instead of blowing their nose, they can do, Okay, they suck it up, or, and then of course that pee or whatever it is that they put in their nose actually go further back in. So in general, if they put something in their ear or they put something in their nose, go to A&E, let them take that out, okay? Because as a parent, the only thing you'll do is push it further back in. So go to A&E and get that sorted. So yeah, there. So yeah.
So that is and could that be life-threatening, pushing something in their nose or in their mouth? Could that be a life-threatening? Could they be gasping? Could they be?
Nose, well, even, yeah, and anything, of course, can be dangerous. Nose is usually, they can't. They can't get it too far in, but in general, what can happen is it can stay in there. Okay, if you don't notice that they've done something in the kitchen or and you don't notice something is in their nose, it can stay in there for quite a long time and of course can get infected. Okay, so that's definitely not good. Okay, in their mouth, again, it can choke you. So, of course, choking can happen. And unfortunately, what also can happen, if it's small enough that you can actually swallow it. So if you take, for instance, these little batteries, for instance, they're small enough to swallow, but of course they leak acids. So, they go through your system and then leak in acids, and that way can absolutely do quite a significant amount of damage. So, yeah, all of it really should not be in noses and mouth and things like that. That's not supposed to be there, basically. So, yeah. If you find out, a 111 in general, okay, ask questions. But I would say anything in nose or ears, let the professionals take that out. Okay, anything in the mouth, okay, anything that's been drinking, chemicals and things like that. Okay, don't give them anything to drink, please, because the more you give them to drink, you think that you're washing things away, but actually you're diluting things, and that makes that the body absorbs it quicker. So please don't give them anything to drink. Okay, go to A&E. Go to A&E. Take the bottle with you. Take with you what it is that you think it is. Okay, in terms of content and how much they've used and what they've used. Okay. And then go to A&E. If you call 999, what they really like to know is, of course, what it is, when they've taken it, how much they've taken. Don't make them vomit. Please don't make them vomit, because anything that's going in that burns you on the way in can also burn you on the way out. Now, people, of course, vomit. You can't stop vomit. So if a child has vomited, please keep some of that vomit for the ambulance services so they can take that with them, so they can actually see what's in that stomach. Okay, but please don't give them anything to drink, because that basically can do a lot of harm. The only thing you might be able to do, and it really depends a little bit on the age of the child, if they can sort of wash their mouth out. Okay, so any chemical and things like that, can you wash it out and then they spit that water back out again? Okay, so but don't give them anything to eat or drink, because that will make it worse basically over time. So yeah,
999 will tell you what to do and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listeners, do tune into us after this commercial break, where we'll come back to you with looking after your children and how to be more knowledgeable in looking after your children over the holidays, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
شاطئ في يديه كفارة للخطايا، وشاطئ في يديه كفارة للخطايا. الخطايا. ذهبت يوما إليه بأدمعي وشقايا، ورحت ألقي عليه تبتلي وهدايا. يا رجائي،
يا رجائي، يا رجائي، يا رجائي، يا رجائي، يا
ذهبت يوما ونفسي جريحة تتعايا، وللمعاصي عواء مدمدم في الحنايا. ذهبت يوما ونفسي جريحة تتعايا، وللمعاصي عواء مدمدم في الحنايا. كأنه صوت ذئب
تغافلته الحشايا،
أو نوح ثكلى أهاجت
لها القبور خفايا،
أو صرخة من يتيم
تلطفته الرزايا.
حملتها وكأني حملت هول المنايا، وجئت ندمن أزجي إلى المتاب خطايا. يا رجائي،
يا رجائي، يا رجائي، يا رجائي، يا رجائي.
رباه عفوك إني للنور مدت يدايا، نزعت أسرار قلبي وجئت ألقي أسايا. رباه عفوك إني للنور مدت يدايا، نزعت أسرار قلبي وجئت ألقي أسايا. وأشتكي طي صدري
سحيق الطوايا،
به بدأت ولكن لم أدر يأسي فيه، ولا عرفت ظلامي، ولا عرفت ضحايا، ولا لغيرك دوايا. رب يوم الندايا. يا رجائي،
يا رجائي،
يا صباحي مصفد في مسايا، فاسكن ضياك إني ظمآن ضل صدايا إليك أنت صباحي مصفد في مسايا فاسكن ضياك إني ظمآن ضل صدايا لم أدري من أي نبع
حسني جنين الركايا
وشط لا ما فيه
في اللظى في حشايا
رحماك يا رب إني
والخطايا
في لجة ليس فيها من الضياء بقايا جفت وغاضت ولكن ما زلت أسجي رجايا يا رحماك يا رب إني وزورقي والخطايا في لجة ليس فيها من الضياء بقايا جفت وغاضت ولكن ما زلت أسجي رجايا ما زلت أسجي رجايا
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back, parents, to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5 here in the West Midlands and 105.1 if you're tuned into us on Inspire FM. And then you mentioned there a bit about choking, that now is a good time to talk about choking indeed. And choking can be all those things that you mentioned, those batteries and everything else, too, even sweets.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. You mean there's these lovely lollies that are flat and round lollies on the stick. If you suck hard enough, that lolly comes off. And if you're, a bit of speed, and it ends up in the back of your throat. So yeah, and we're sometimes, kids don't, and adults are the same thing, of course. We don't always chew well enough. Okay. Or sometimes, I don't know if you ever had that. You're sitting somewhere, say in a restaurant, you've got the mints and you're kind of sucking on the mint, and all of a sudden something happens. Your body has a bit of a reaction, and all of a sudden that mint goes whoop and straight in the back of your throat. Okay. And that blocks your throat. So yeah. It's unfortunately very every time you cough because you're drinking something and a drop goes into the wrong pipe, that basically is the start of a choke, isn't it? So the body's very good to protect itself. Okay, so they have the epiglottis, that's a flap over your airway that blocks your airway when food needs to go into your stomach. Okay, but if that epiglottis is 1 millisecond too late because you're doing lots of things, you're eating, you're breathing, you're talking, you're doing a lot of things at the same time, then the epiglottis can be 1 millisecond too late. And if it's a millisecond too late and it doesn't go over your airway, then it stands open and something can go in. So yeah, and then it can block your airway, which is not good because you need your air in. Okay, you need your oxygen. So yes. Yeah.
What would parents do maybe for if you can give us different examples for a baby or toddler compared to an older child?
Yeah. Now for babies, okay, for anyone, to be honest, for babies, for children, for older children, for adult, for adults as well, okay, back slaps. Now, the back slaps are with your flat hand, with the palm of your hand, okay, in between the shoulder blades with a bit of a moving up motion, okay? You need to make sure for everyone, okay, that the airway is open. So for children who are, I say, as of 1 year old, let them stand and let them lean forward. Same with adults, okay, bigger children, let them lean forward, because if you have them upright, the object can go deeper in. So you need to make sure that they're leaning forward so the object can come out. For babies, you want to have them either over your lap with the head lower than the rest of the body, or if you hold them on their, basically on your arm, okay, and the back is towards you, make sure the head is lower again, so that object can come out and doesn't go any deeper into your airways, okay? The back slaps don't need to be nice. That sounds not very nice, but they need to be quite forceful. If you can imagine, if you tap your little baby on the back, that's not doing anything, okay? You need to be quite forceful to create a ripple effect, and that ripple effect hopefully dislodges that object, okay? So you need to be quite forceful. Same with children, same with adults, okay? You need to really slap someone quite hard between the shoulder blades, okay? So don't be afraid to do that, because that object needs to come out, okay? So worst case scenario, if it stays in, unfortunately, if it takes too long, then death is the result, okay? So make sure you really slap that. So both babies, children, adults, on the back, make sure they lean forward. In general, okay, you want to call 999. If someone, especially babies, because they have very little residual oxygen in their body, call 999 straight away, okay? So a pediatric call always go to the top of the list. There's a category 1 call, okay? So call 999 straight away. Okay, do the back slap. We say do 5 back slaps. Okay, so we do a back slap. You want to check then if the object comes out. Okay, you don't want to keep on slapping someone on the back when the object came out first time round. Okay, so keep on back slap and then check the object comes out. Back slap, check if the object comes out. You do that 5 times. Okay, now for babies are slightly different, but as of the age of about 1 year old up till the adults, okay, then you want to do the abdominal thrusts. Okay. What you're basically going to do, you stand behind the person, you make a fist, okay? In general, it doesn't matter which hand you do that, your dominant, usually it's your non-dominant hand, okay? So you make a fist and you put that fist in the soft part of their stomach, just above the belly button. Then you put your dominant hand over that fist. Okay, make sure the person is leaning forward, and then you need to make a kind of a scooping motion, an inwards, upwards scooping motion. But you need to do that quite quickly, so you don't do okay, you do okay, really quick. So in up, you almost lift the person off their feet. Okay, and that really what that does is it creates an awful lot of pressure in your chest, and the air from your chest then hopefully pushes that object out. So that's what you do. So you do that 5 times as well, okay? So you do that, and you want to check, of course, if the object comes out. You don't want to keep on doing that, because you can actually really do some damage there. So do an abdominal thrust, okay? And then check if the object comes out. Another abdominal thrust, make sure the object, that the object comes out. You just stop doing that, okay? You do it 5 times. If nothing happens, go back to the back slap. So you keep on doing 5 back slaps, 5 abdominal thrusts, 5 back slap, 5 abdominal thrust, okay, until that object is out. Okay. If you have, sorry.
I was just going to thinking there as you're talking about those abdominal thrusts, you need to be bigger in a way to be able to put your arms around that person, hold your arms in the front and do that. So you need to have long arms, or the person needs to be smaller than you in some way. It's
absolutely. I always say if I need to do something like that, I will be scanning the room for very tall men, okay? Because they are A, strong, and B, they have long arms, okay? So yeah, it's easier in that sense. It's easier for them than it is for smaller people, okay? Or for women, because we have less power. I mean, so yeah. And the quicker you do that motion, the more effective it is. The quicker you get an object out. Okay, the longer you're faff about with it, the more it constricts. Because every muscle in that person's body is constricting because they can't breathe. So the more difficult it gets to get that object out. So you really want to be as quickly as possible on that person. Okay. Now for babies, back slaps, as I said before, we do that also for babies. But if those 5 back slaps don't work, what we do for babies is a slow chest thrust. So what we do, we turn the baby round. So you hold them on their back. Their head is lower than the rest of the body. And then you put 2 fingers on their chest, just below the nipple line, and you push hard on their chest. Okay, and again, that creates sort of a pressure on their chest to push that object out. Okay, so that's what you do with babies, okay, because you can't do the abdominal thrust for babies. There's no space in their little stomachs to do that. So, yeah. So, yes.
Oh, a lot for parents to think of, and a lot for knowledge to have there in the home. But the parents, this is really important knowledge that you need. And this is why we're talking about it this evening on Parenting Hour on Unity FM. You know, we want to give you a range of skills. We want you to be knowledgeable. We want you to be able to save lives. We've talked a lot about physical health, mental health, spiritual health, but here this evening, part of our physical health is saving lives, and we really want you to have these skills indeed to be able to do this. And it is hard, but it's amazing, as you said, how the adrenaline kicks in when you're in that situation, and you can actually do things that you would never thought that you could do. And I'm thinking back of a situation where one of my children one time was choking on sweets, and you know how I automatically went in and did something like this, and she was going blue in front of me. So I just had to do those, as you said, those backward slaps, and alhamdulillah, the sweets came out. They had stuck together, and they came out. So, but it was frightening. You know, it is frightening that this can happen, and it's always when we're busy and our back turned, and when we think our kids are playing with other children, and we just don't realize that simple little things can happen like this.
Yeah, and also, I mean, make sure that you cut food, okay? The grapes, little sausages, you know, whatever it is you create. You know, think about the size of their mouth, and think about the size of their airways, okay? If it's those, let's say, grapes are the perfect size to block an airway, okay? So make sure you cut things in smaller pieces so they basically cannot block it. If it goes wrong, then it cannot block that airway, okay? Because some of these have just a perfect size to do that. So yeah.
And frightening indeed when it does happen. So we've talked about that now. Things up the nose, in the ears, in the mouth, choking. What else can happen in the home?
Nosebleeds can happen, of course. Nosebleeds. So I was thinking nosebleeds and something called febrile convulsions. So nosebleeds in general, okay, of course. Nosebleeds can happen, for so many different reasons. Okay, just dry air can give you a nosebleed. Okay. In general, nosebleeds, okay, please sit the person down, sit the child down if you can, okay, let them lean forward. Please don't let them lean backwards with their head, okay? If you lean a person backwards when they're bleeding and having a nosebleed, okay, then the blood goes to via their throat into their stomach, and worst case scenario into their lungs, okay? You want that blood to come out. So make sure they sit down, let them lean forward, and then put pressure on the soft part of the nose, okay? So that tip of the nose, that's where you put pressure on there. You need to do that pressure for about 10 minutes. We have something in our blood called platelets, and platelets is our clotting element. And the platelets need about 10 minutes to start that clotting. So that's why we want to put pressure on the nose for 10 minutes. But it's a soft part of the nose, not on the bones, not on the cartilage, higher up the nose, the soft part of the nose. So 10 minutes, okay. In general, that should stop the bleeding. If it doesn't stop slowly, then do another 10 minutes, okay, until the bleeding has stopped, basically. So then don't let them go back in and have a bit of a rummage around and see if you can get something out of it, okay, because that's what kids do, okay, or let them blow their nose, okay, because then of course that puts pressure on the walls of your of those capillaries, and then they start bleeding again, okay. So no pressure on there, no hot drinks as well, okay, because the hot fumes go into your nose, that widens those blood vessels, and then it can start bleeding again, okay. So stay away from that a little bit, okay, but that should do the trick.
Great, because that does happen a lot, of course, and even maybe you might see some blood on a pillow or something in the morning time, and the child might have had it during the night.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and the other thing I was thinking of, yeah, the flu is going around again, isn't it? So, yeah, flu. And the thing that you need to realize, especially with smaller kids, for up to the age of 3, sometimes 4, sometimes a little older. Okay, when you're being born, you're completely new, and some things have not fully grown yet. They're starting to fully grow when you're a child. And one of those things is I would say that the control over your body temperature. So as a human being, as a grown-up, we have a relative control over our body temperature. Okay, we also recognize when we're getting hot, we recognize when we're getting cold. Now, for the body, if there's a virus or a bacteria that gets into our body, the body heats up to kill a virus. Okay, that's how the body basically kills a virus. That's why we get hot, okay, because the body is trying to kill the virus with heat. But sometimes, as in a child, all of a sudden the body has no control over that heating up. So they have a virus, the body starts to heat up, they go 37 degrees, 38 degrees, and all of a sudden the body gets out of control, woof, and all of a sudden the child goes into 40, 41 degrees, okay, in terms of heat. And basically what happens, if you're heating up, you're basically boiling your organs. Your blood is getting hotter. Your blood as water. All your organs are in that blood. So if your blood is hotting up, your organs are being cooked, basically. And one of the organs that's being cooked is your brain. And your brain sometimes is not happy with that. So sometimes kids, okay, that happens to the kid, they go into a seizure. Because the brain is now, hotting up. The brain doesn't like that, and that sends that child into a seizure. They call that febrile convulsion for little children, okay? And basically what you need to do is cool your child down. Call 999, okay? And then cool your child down. So if they're in bed, take the pajamas off, take the duvets off, take cool it down. Open up the windows, cool that room, cool that body down. That's what you need to do, okay? You don't want to put them in baths or things like that. You want to cool the entire room down, okay? So if, again, make sure it's the environment that you're cooling down. Don't put fans on kids, because if you put a fan on someone, you're cooling one part of the body down and sometimes not the other part, and then the body gets really confused. So you need to cool the entire body down. So take clothing off, windows open, cool that child down, okay? And then call 999, okay? So in principle, if that body is cooling down, the seizures should subside, okay? And then they need to be checked by ambulance services or A&E, basically. So
get to hospital as quickly as possible.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's very frightening if something like that happens indeed to a parent, and they might get really worried about that. But it's really good advice: cool the body down and ring 999 and get them down. Indeed. And you said not put them into a bath, so that would that put them into further shock or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's way too quick, and absolutely you need to cool that body down, and relatively gradually. You need to cool it down, but don't overdo it, because then the body gets confused, and you have hot blood going in and cold blood going in, and you actually can get people into heart attacks with doing that. So you don't want to do that. Okay, so cool that room down, make it as cool as possible. Okay, clothing off, things like that. Yeah.
So we have about 2 minutes left before the end of the show. It goes very quickly here. Do we have time for another incident that happens often in the home?
Well, we haven't talked really about what to do with burns, so I could quickly talk about burns and what to do. Okay, so if a child burns themselves with a candle or hot drink or things like that, okay, you need to cool that down. So tepid water. Okay, and then running water. So you make sure if they burn themselves, okay, put that burn under running tepid water for 20 minutes. Okay, cool it down. If you can imagine, the body likes one temperature. We are one temperature. So if something all of a sudden is a different temperature on our body, the body doesn't like that, okay? But it can take quite a long time for the body to cool a particular area down. So you need to help it, because as long as that area is warmer than the rest of the body, that area starts growing, okay? So then you have a bigger burn, than you initially started off with. So cool a burn down. Tepid water, 20 minutes under running water, okay? Cool it down. If you want to bandage it up, okay, use cling film, okay, or a non-fluffy dressing. Okay. In general, for kids, I would always go to A&E with my kids with a burn, okay, because I need to be checked out. They have a different kind of skin than we have as grown-ups, okay, more sensitive. So I would definitely make sure that they've been checked over if they have a burn. Okay.
And do you remove the clothes or do you leave the clothes on?
In general, leave the clothes. Don't start picking things out, stuff like, is it pooling because anything is burned into it, okay, cut the clothing away, but for the rest, leave it on, okay, leave it on, okay. If you want to bandage it up, use cling film or non-fluffy dressing, and then you go to A&E with that burn. Please don't put anything on there. No, in general, you know, we have lots of great stuff, but if you're going to A&E, don't put anything on there. A lot of people talk about toothpaste or aloe vera or things like that, okay. In general, okay, if it's a bigger burn, I would say go to A&E and let them take care of it rather than putting things on there that might do more bad than good, basically. So
Brilliant, Marleen. You've got it all in, and we're just at the end of the show again. Time runs by very quickly, but you've given some wonderful tips to parents. Of course, we want them to have a safe and happy holiday over the Christmas holidays in a few weeks' time, and to learn these skills for life, because these are life skills.
they are.
Giving our parents. And I would like to thank you so much for coming on the show this evening. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much for your time.
Thank
Parents,
you.
do look after yourselves, have a good week, and keep safe and sound, and all your family, inshallah. And until next week, assalamu alaikum.
And so this traveler, lost and weary, wandering far from home, came at last upon your caravanserai. And where the ocean meets the sea, in grief and anguish he did weep. So long I've wandered, and yet still I know not what I seek. And yet reflected in your eyes, I see a truth that splits the night. So can you whisper to me the secret of what worship is? So you said, La ilaha illallah, Allahu, Allahu, La ilaha illallah, Allahu, Allahu, La ilaha illallah, Allahu, Allahu, La ilaha illallah, Allahu, Allahu. You cannot worship until you love. You cannot love until you feel. You cannot feel until you understand. You can understand until you learn. You cannot learn until you have been found. Can't be found until you seek. You will not seek nor find until you yearn. And you will not yearn till you remember. So remember, La ilaha illallah, Allahu, Allahu, 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 Allahu. The traveler's heart stirred and awoke, and borne aloft on wings of hope, beheld a deeper mystery glimmering beneath your words. He cast محمد 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 محمد. His name is Muhammad. He came as a guide. His name is Muhammad. He came to show us the light. His name is Muhammad. He came with peace. His name is Muhammad. He brought us great ease. Muhammad, 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 Muhammad. Muhammad, 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 Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Jibreel came down with a message from Allah. In the cave of Hira, he said, Iqra. This was when he was given his prophecy, as he began creating a new legacy. Muhammad, 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 Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammad wa barik wa sallim.